Hello everyone and welcome back to Codes and Titans. I am Bhumi, your Python instructor, and today we are going to start our lecture 2 of Python Fundamental series. Before we move ahead, let's do a quick recap of what we learned in our last lecture. First, we answered the question what is Python? So Python is a high-level interpreted dynamic language. Dynamic because in Python, whenever we declare a variable, we don't have to explicitly tell the computer its data type. Python is smart enough to understand the type during the initialization of the variable automatically. Then we learned about variables and different types of data types in Python. And we also looked into how do we print in Python. So to print anything, we use print function and we write our message in parentheses. So if we run this, we can see hello world is printed on the screen. Now after that, we also understood about input function. So if we want to take input from user, for example, we are taking input as age and we will write enter age, and then we will print age, and we will also see the type of the output age variable. Now we will run this and it asks us to enter the age. We will write 34 and we see it gives us string variable. This happens because input function always take an string as input default. So to avoid this, we use typecasting. So we will typecast this input function in an int function, and now that we take user input and we enter our age, we see that it is int. So this concept is typecasting. After that, we also looked into comments. So there are two types of comments in Python. One is a single line comment and second is a multi-line comment. So a single line comment can simply be written by hash in front of it. Like this is a single line comment. And if we want to make a multi-line comment, so we can simply enclose our comment between triple quotes, for example in this. Now this is a multi-line comment. Now let's move on to our today's topic, that is operators. So in programming, operators are special symbols or keywords that are used to perform operations on variables and values. We have different types of operators available in Python. So first we will be starting with our first operator, that is arithmetic operators. Arithmetic operators are generally used for performing mathematical operations. So we will understand this by taking two variables. One is 24 and then another is 10. Now let's perform arithmetic operations on it. So we will perform first our addition operator. This will give us the sum of both the values. Then we will also see our other basic operators, which is subtraction, asterisk, which performs multiplication, and then division. So when we run this, we will see we have our sum of both operation 24 plus 10, which is 34. Then the minus give the difference, which is 24 minus 10 is 14. Then asterisk gives multiplication of both the variables. that is 24 and 10 equals to 240. Then the last one gives the division of the two variables, that is 2.4. Now our next operator is the modulo operator. So in Python, the modulo operator will give us the remainder of the two variables. Like if we run this, we get our output as 4. So if we divide 10 by 24, we will see the remainder which will be left is 4. So the modulo operator gives us the remainder. Up next, let's understand about the flow division operator. So what the flow division does is similar to division only. So the flow division will divide the two numbers, but it will give us the whole number part of the output, not the decimal part. So let's see how it works. So this is the division operator which does normal division, and now we will use flow division, that is two division symbols. And if we run this, in the output we see the output for the division is 2.4, but for the flow division it's only 2. So it divided the two variables, but it gave only the whole number part and not the whole answer. So this is the function of flow division. Now our last arithmetic operator which is left is the double asterisk, which is the exponential operator. So the exponential operator works similar to the power function in the maths library of Python. So what it does is that it treats one variable, let's say 3, as the base and the other variable as power. So if we use double asterisk here and run this program, we will see that it gives the output 9, which is 3 to the power 2 is 9. So this is how we use the exponential operator in Python, and we can find power of any numeric variable that we want to using the exponential operator. So this is all about our arithmetic operator. Now we will move on to our next type of operators, which is the comparison operators. So the comparison operators basically compares two value expression and return a boolean result, true or false. Some of the common comparison operators are double equals, which is the equal operator. This is the not equal to operator, the greater than, less than, greater than or equal, and less than or equal. Now let's see how these actually work. So we will take two variables, let's say 10. Now if we see we want to use the equal to operator and we run this, this will give us true because we have a equals to 10 and b equals to 10, so both the variable values are equal. Now let's change this value to 20 and see the output. Now this turned to false because the value of a is not equal to value of b. Now similarly, if we used the not equal to operator and check the value, so we see the output as false for the equal to and true for the not equal to because the value of a is not equal to the value of b. Now let's see our next operators, which are greater than and less than. So if we use greater than operator, this will return true if a is greater than the value of b, and the less than operator, it will be true only if the value of a is less than b. Now if we run this, we see that the output a is greater than b is false because 10 is not greater than 20, and the next a is less than 20 is as true because 10 is less than 20. As for the greater than equal to or less than or equal to operator, it just means that the variable a should either be greater than or equal to the value of b. So if we run this now, we see that it still gives false, but let's say if this variable was 10, now we run this, we see that the output has turned true because 10 is not less than 10 but it is equal to 10. So for this operator, either it should be greater than or equal to, so it will give true if any of this case satisfies. Similarly, it does in greater than equal to. So now we see that both are true because the value of a and b is not greater than or less than, but both are equal. So we see that the comparison operators compares any two of our values and give us a Boolean output. Now let's move on to our next operator, which is the logical operator. So we have three types of logical operators: the AND operator, the OR operator, and the NOT operator. So what the logical operator does is it checks any two conditions, and based on those conditions it will give us again a Boolean output. So let's see how this actually works. So now we will take two variables, one let's say true and another as false. So first let's see the use of NOT operator. So what the NOT operator does is it will reverse the result. So let's say if we print not a, so we can see the value of a we have given is false. So if we run this, output is true, so it reversed the value of a. And if we use b here, the value was true and it reversed the value to false. So this is simply how the NOT operator will work. Now let's see our next operator, which is AND operator. So the AND operator will only give output as true if both the variable, let's say a and b, are true. So if we see a and b and we print this, we see that it is false because a is false and b is true. So both are not the true values, so it did not give true. So let's see if we change this to true. Now this gave our output as true. Now we will see that even if we give false value to both the operators and run this, it still gives false. So it doesn't matter if both the values are same, but both the values should be true. Only then it will give true as the output. Now next operator is OR operator. So OR operator will give output as false only when both are false. Let's see if we use OR operator here. then this gives false because both the values are false. But if either of the values will be true, let's say A is true, we see that it gives the output as true. So we see if we make B true and keep A as false, it still gives true. So in a nutshell, we can see that the AND function will only give true output if both the given values are true, and OR will give only false if both the values are false, otherwise true, and a NOT operator will reverse whatever the value is given. So this is all about our logical operator. Now the next operator we will learn are the assignment operators. So these operators assign values to the variables. Let's say we have a variable a equals to 10, and then we want to give b the value of a. So we will simply write a equals to b, and to check the values we will print both variable a and variable b. Now we see that a was 10, and when we did b equals to a, the value of a was assigned to the value of b. Now similarly, if we have a equals to 10 and we use the second operator, which is the add and assign operator, so it is used with like a plus equal to, let's say, 3. Now if we print the value of a, we will see it is 13. So what the add and assign does is that it will take the original value of a, which was 10, and whatever we have given the value, which is 3, it will add this value to the value of a and assign the new value to a, which is 3. So we see the value of a was 10, and if we add 3, it will give 13. Similarly, if we did the subtraction, it gave us 7. It subtracted the value 3 from our original value and assigned a new value, which is 7. It works the same way in the multiplication, like it assigned 3 into 10, 30, the new value to a, and in the same way in division, like it 3 divided by 10 is 3.33, and it assigned this value to a. So this is all about our assignment operators. Let's move on to our next operators now, which is the membership operators. So what the membership operator does is it check whether a value or a variable exists within a sequence or not. The sequence could be a list, a tuple, a dictionary, or simply a string. So let's see, if we have a string, let's say string equals to Python, and then we want to check if our character P is in string Python or not. So we will run this, and we see the output is true because the character P exists in the string Python. So similarly, for the not in operator, it will give, if the operator doesn't exist, it will give us true, and if it doesn't, it will give us false. So for example, if we type anything like a, So A in string, because A was not present in this sequence, it gave false. But if we write not in, which means that this A does not exist in our sequence, it gives true. So it will check the availability of our value in our any sequence. Now our last operator is identity operator. Identity operators are of two types, is and is not. So an identity operator is used to compare whether two variables refer to the same object in the memory or not. So we will understand this by, let's take a list, let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3, and let's take another list which is also 1 comma 2 comma 3. Now we will check if A is B or not. So when we run this, it came as false. Even though we can see that both are the same values, but identity operator does not check if the values of the variables are same. It checks if they refer to the same location in the memory or not. For example, if we take another variable C equals to A, and now we check if A is C and run this, it came as true because C refers to the same object as A. That is why we should not confuse the equal to operator, which is A equals to B, the equality operator, because we will see that it check for the values. We can see that A and B have the same values, so it gave the true. But when we checked it with is, it did not. So we can conclude that the identity operator check for the same reference of the variables in the memory and not just their values. With this, our operators are successfully completed. So we have learned about the first arithmetic operators, then comparison operators, logical operators, assignment operators, then the membership operator and identity operator. I hope topic of operator is now clear to everyone. So we can now move on to our next concept, which is conditional statements. So conditional statements in Python are used to control the flow of a program by executing specific blocks of code, but only when they meet a certain condition. We will use keywords like if, elif, and else in the conditional statements. So the first statement that we will be studying is the if statement. The if statement is used to execute a block of code only if the specified condition is true. So the syntax of the if condition is if condition, and then we will write the code. So we will understand it by a simple program. Let's take a variable as, let's say, 10. And now we will write an if condition for this. Let's say if, and our condition is if a is greater than 5, then we will print that value is greater than 5. Now when we run this code, we will see the value is greater than 5 is printed because our condition a is greater than 5, which is 10 is greater than 5 was true. Now another thing in Python is that in Python we don't use curly brackets. So with indentation we put a blank space at the beginning of the line that will separate a block of code. For example, if I did not leave any space, you will see that it gives an error and it is not executing the code because I have not given the indentation here. Similarly, if I have another line of code, then I have to begin it in the same block with the same number of white spaces. Like let's say print code executed. And if I run this, so now we see that it is successfully executed. But what if I increase the space here and then try to run this code? We see that it gives an indentation error because the spaces before this line of code is not same, which means that this does not belong to the same block. So make sure that the indentation is always correct in your code. Now we will move on to our next conditional statement, which is the if-else statement. So the if-else statement provides an alternative block of code to execute when the condition we provided is false. For example, here our condition was default true, but what if our value was 2 and we run, we see we did not get any output because the conditional statement was executed. So now we will add an else block here, which will give another statement here. So that value is less, we forgot the double quotes. So value is less than 5. So now that we run this code, we see that value is less than 5, which is the else code block was executed, not this, because our condition 2 is greater than 5 was false. So our else block executed and we got the output value is less than 5. This is our if else statement. Now the next conditional statement is the nested if statement. So in the nested if statement, um, a if condition has another if condition inside it. So as we can see, this is the syntax for our if else statement. So if we write this is our if condition 1, then there is another if condition 2 inside this. Then we have our block of code which will be executed if our both conditions are true. Now let's understand this with an example. Let's say we have a equals to 15. Now our first condition is if a is greater than 10, and then our second condition is if let's say a modulus 2 equals to 0, then it will print the value is greater than 10 and divisible by 2. So when we run this code, there is no output because even if our first condition a is greater than 10, so 15 is greater than 10, it's true, but our second condition a modulo 2 equals to 0 is not true because it enters our if block from here and checks another condition, but it's not true, so it does not proceed further. So this is how another if condition is nested in one if condition. If we change the value to 14, now we see the value is greater than 10 and divisible by 2 because both condition satisfies. Similarly, we have nested if else statement. So here we can see we have an if else statement and we have another if else statement block inside the if condition. And here we need to be careful about the indentation because we can see we have equal space before the if and else statement. So this will be treated as one block, and then there is the same space before the both if and else conditions, so this will be treated as one block. So let's understand this with an example. So let's say we have a variable age equals to 14, and our first condition is if age is greater than 18, and our next condition is if age is greater than or equal to 21, then print that it is eligible for voting and drink. But if we see that our condition 2, which is that age equals to 21, is not true, then we will write here print eligible for voting but not drink, because our first condition is true, so it is eligible for voting, but our second condition is not true, so it is not eligible to drink. Similarly, we have our last else block, which will only be executed if both our condition is false. So in this block, not eligible for voting or drinking. So if we run this code, so we see that we have our output as not eligible for voting or drink because age was equal to 14. So both the conditions are false. Now we will see if our age is 25. Now our output is eligible for voting and drinking because our age is greater than 18 and also 21. Then the last condition we'll check is 20. So here our age is greater than 18 but not 21, so only one condition is true, so this will be executed. So this was all about our nested if else statement, and this is our syntax. If condition 1 is true, then we will check condition 2, and if condition 2 is true, then this code will be executed for both true conditions, else this will be executed for condition 1 true and condition 2 false, and if both the conditions are false, the else statement will be executed. Now we will be moving on to the next conditional statement, which is elif statement. this is the syntax for our elif statement. So our elif statement basically multiple conditions without deep nesting of if else. So it will check the first condition, this is not true, then it will move on to the second condition, and so on. It can have as many conditions, 3, 4 between it. At the end, it will have the else statement which will execute if none of the above conditions are true. We will now understand this with an example. Let's say we have marks equals to 70. Now our first condition is if marks is greater than or equal to 90, then we will print grade A. And our next condition, elif marks is greater than or equal to 70, our grade will be B. And then we have another elif statement which will be if marks is greater than or equal to 50, then let's print grade C. And the last condition, else print grade F. So now if we run this, we see our marks is 70. So it did not satisfy first condition, so it moved on to the second. So our marks was equal to 70. So it printed B grade. Now let's change and see if our marks was 40. So now that we run this code, we will see our grade is F. So it checked for the first condition, it didn't match, so moved on to the second, didn't match. Third, still didn't match, so it skipped all the conditions and moved on to the S code block, else, where we have our grade F. So I hope all the conditional statements are clear. Now this sums up our second lecture. You can also practice the questions on operators and different conditional statements for better understanding and practice. Now, that will be all, and I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you.